What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for MLB Saturday, April 15th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's MLB slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have a 12-game MLB slate tonight. Starts at 1:05 p.m., so actually I should say we have a 12-game MLB slate today. So let's take a look at the pitcher position. I like Anthony DeSclafani. And he's got a massive pitching advantage here over a low salary batting team, the Detroit Tigers. Anthony DeSclafani pitching his best ball versus righty batters, and he's pitched pretty well versus lefties too, giving up a .389 OPS versus lefties, a .200 OPS versus righties. So he's come out to this season on fire. And the Tigers have only hit 3 of his last 16 pitches to 188 batting average. So Anthony DeSclafani, he's averaging 41 fantasy points per game on the season. Scored 41 and 40 fantasy points in his first 2 starts. Has an ERA of .73. Record is 1-0. Pitching an average of 81 pitches per game. So I just like that he's facing such a weak batting team here tonight. I think he's got some massive upside. So I like Anthony DeSclafani here versus the Detroit Tigers. Now, of course, you could also take a look at Freddie Peralta pitching against the San Diego Padres. Freddie Peralta pitching really well versus lefties and righties. His worst pitch is to switch hitters. Facing no switch hitters tonight, so the splits are great. And the Padres are only 3 for 12 versus Freddie. That's a 143 batting average. He's averaging 48 fantasy points per game on the season, has an ERA of .75. Record is 2-0, pitching an average of 94 pitches per game. So I like Freddie Peralta here versus the San Diego Padres. I got distracted for a second because I'm looking at this game here. Bryce Elder, his stat is he's pitching 182 pitches per game on average. I don't think so. We'll have to look into that one. We just started using the stats from this season. I think that might be a little bug that needs to be fixed, but outside of that, all the stats on the other players are looking good. So let's take a look at the catcher first base position. I like Mike Zunino. This is a value play. He's got a 41% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Chad Kuhl. Mike Zunino, he's batting a .961 OPS versus righties. Chad Kuhl pitching his worst ball versus righty batters, 67% worse than his other pitches, giving up a 1.271 OPS versus righties. Mike Zunino is 2,600 FanDuel salary, 1,200 more on DraftKings, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 6, 3, and 25 fantasy points in the last 3 games. Has a batting average of .286. Vegas thinks there's going to be 9.5 runs scored in this game. So I like that over-under. So I like Mike Zunino here versus Chad Kuhl. Now, the other value play you want to keep your eye on here is Christian Betancourt. He's got a 31% batting advantage over UC Kikuchi. Christian Betancourt batting 53% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a 1.025 OPS versus lefties. UC Kikuchi giving up a .988 OPS versus righties. And Betancourt is 1 for 2 here versus Kikuchi. Only 2,400 FanDuel salary, 600 more on DraftKings. And he scored 22 fantasy points in both of his last 2 games, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. Scored fantasy points in 4 out of his last 5 games, so he's been hot. He's got a batting average of 231, but I like my chances here in what should be a high-scoring game at super low salary as a value play. So I like Christian Betancourt here versus Yusei Kikuchi. Okay, everyone, it's time to announce the winner of our $25 weekly PayPal giveaway. And the winner is Patrick Bush. Congratulations, Patrick Bush. Please reply to our comment to collect your prize. Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won. And then we'll send you $25 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you. Okay, let's take a look at the second base position. I like Luis Reyes with a 78% batting advantage over Ryan Nelson. Luis Reyes batting 29% better versus righty pitchers, batting a 1.328 OPS versus righties. It's always funny early in the season. We only have about a couple weeks of baseball under our belt. So the season stats are, they're a small sample size. So another couple weeks, these OPS numbers will balance out to what their true numbers are going to be this season, or a better representation of it anyways. But it's always funny the first couple of weeks how, if a guy goes on a run hitting versus righties, he can really jack up his OPS just early in the season. So I always like to wait a little while before we update the stats to use this season's stats for this exact reason. So sorry about that for those that are waiting, and some people might even like seeing last season's stats. I actually want to put a tool in Draft Dashboard to change to last season's stats, so you can see or to factor in last season's stats, so you can get a more average OPS early in the season. I think that's a big problem with baseball DFS research sites. I think that would be really cool to include last season's data, and then you can just opt out of it whenever you want, and that's really for baseball mostly. Anyway, sorry for going on that little rant there, or tangent. Not a rant. That's just a feature that I thought would be handy. So Luis Reyes, he's got good splits here. Ryan Nelson pitching his worst ball versus lefty batters, giving up a .990 OPS versus lefties. And Luis Reyes is 3,200 FanDuel salary, 900 more on DraftKings, averaging 12 fantasy points per game on the season. See, he's got a batting average right now of 500. That's not going to last throughout the season, but he's off to a super hot start. And I remember Luis Reyes from last year playing really well, and he was always outperforming his salary, so I think he might do it again this year. This is a guy I would just keep your eye on throughout the season. If you can get him cheap, go ahead and plug in Luis Reyes here versus Ryan Nelson. Okay, let's take a look at the third base position. I like Evan Longoria with a 51% batting advantage over Braxton Garrett. Evan Longoria, he is batting 16% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a 1.189 OPS versus lefties. Braxton Garrett pitching his worst ball versus righty batters, 35% worse than his other pitches, giving up a 1.3 OPS versus righties. Evan Longoria, 1 for 2 here versus Garrett. He's 3,300 FanDuel salary, only 100 more on DraftKings. So I love that DraftKings price. That DraftKings price sticks out to me. So he's averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He has a batting average of 333. He scored fantasy points in 4 out of his last 5 games, and a couple of those were pretty big numbers. So I like Evan Longoria here versus Braxton Garrett. Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups. Okay, who do we have at the shortstop position? So a couple of studs for you. I like Bo Bichette and I like Trey Turner. So let's take a look at Trey Turner. He's 3,500 FanDuel salary. He is 2,600 more on DraftKings. Looks way overpriced on DraftKings, but I like that FanDuel salary. So Trey Turner averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season, has a batting average of 323, scored fantasy points in 4 out of his last 5 games, sitting at 3,500 FanDuel salary. Looks like a slam dunk to me. Vegas thinks there's going to be 9.5 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I like Trey Turner here versus Graham Ashcraft. Okay, moving on to the outfield position. I don't have any outfields marked here. Sorry about that, guys. Let's just take a look at them in real time here. So you got Ronald Acuna Jr. as a stud pick on the slate. You got Shohei Ohtani, who's 3 for 6 versus Pivetta with 2 home runs. So I think that's interesting. But coming down, if you want to save some salary, a pick that I like here is Nick Castellanos with a 69% batting advantage over Graham Ashcraft. Nick Castellanos, he's batting a .802 OPS versus righties. Graham Ashcraft pitching his worst ball versus righty batters, giving up a .887 OPS versus righties. Nick Castellanos is 3,200 FanDuel salary. He is 1,200 more on DraftKings, averaging 12 fantasy points per game on the season, scored fantasy points in all 5 of his last games, has a batting average of 308. So I like Nick Castellanos here versus Graham Ashcraft. And one more pick real fast. This is why he's priced down. Actually, I jumped to a little bit of excitement here. Take it for what it's worth. So Andrew McCutchen, he's 5 for 16 here versus Steven Matz. Now Steven Matz throws an awful ball versus righty pitchers, giving up a 1.293 OPS versus righty batters. But Andrew McCutchen, not great so far here versus lefties, but it is early in the season. So the stat that I was looking at that brought me to this pick is Andrew McCutchen is 5 for 16 here versus Matz. It's a 312 batting average. Now it's only a 733 OPS though, because those 5 hits were singles, but he looks pretty underpriced, or he looks somewhat underpriced here. At 3,100 FanDuel salary, 1,300 more on DraftKings, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season with a batting average of 316. So I like Andrew McCutchen here versus Steven Matz. If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this MLB slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again and good luck.